chapter by chapter. We're in the book of Exodus, and we've looked at a couple of really cool chapters here. The ball is really starting to get rolling here, and now we're looking at Exodus chapter 5. And this is one where I think this is kind of where, when you're kind of thinking about the movie version of the story in your head, this is the part that like starts to feel really dramatic. The title here in the ESV, Making Bricks Without Straw. And so this is where you kind of just think to yourself, oh, this Pharaoh is just really mean. He's a bad guy. But I mean, is the point here that the Pharaoh is a nasty guy who kind of has it coming? Is it something else? You know, and that's kind of the thing that we keep looking at here. You know, like why are we being told these things? What is this doing in the story? So we saw it earlier. This is all going towards God delivering his people in a big public way for everyone to see, because he has seen his people suffering. So those are the things we're looking at today. And today I'm very excited to introduce our guest here. This is one of my professors here. We've got Pastor and Dr. David Adams. He's Associate Professor of Exegetical Theology at Concordia Seminary in St. Louis, Missouri. Good morning. So good to hear your voice and to be talking with you and to have you on for Exodus, no less.
Thank you very much, Pastor Espinosa. It's great to be with you and with all of our listeners as well.
Yeah, and you know, I remember it wasn't even that long ago that I had you for Exodus and the Torah way back when I was going through the MDiv. But so Exodus is certainly a book that I think that we all look at regularly and frequently as exegetes, but one that you've looked at a number of times in particular.
Yes, I spent a lot of time with the book of Exodus, primarily because it's really the center of the Torah, the Torah, the first 5 books of the Old Testament, the first 5 books of the Bible. These are really, we think of them as 5 books, but they're really one coherent literary work, and divided into 5 scrolls because it's too big to fit on one scroll.
Right.
Just like First and Second Samuel or First and Second Chronicles are divided. It just so happens that instead of calling them First, Second, Third, Fourth, and Fifth Torah, they have developed their own names historically. But the book, that part that we call Exodus, is critical to the story because it is the point in the narrative of the whole Torah where 2 really critical things happen. One is the deliverance of Israel from Egypt, and the other is the formalization of the relationship between God and his people in the second part of the book. And so we're here in the early part, and our focus is going to be on what God does to deliver his people from their bondage in Egypt.
Yeah, and I think those 2 big themes are in some ways captured by the names that we've seen, and we were looking at that back in chapter 3. It was actually back in chapter 2, and then chapter 3 as well. But just, Moses' name, right? What does it mean? Drawn out of the water. Well, Israel's drawn out of the water. Gershom's name, right? Sojourner in a foreign land, right? Well, sounds like Israel again. And so that idea of God putting a name on his people, and that name is the name of his redemption, right? The 2 together, that formalizing the relationship through rescuing them. It seems like that's just kind of getting hinted at in every chapter that we look at here in Exodus.
Well, names are very important, especially so in the book of Genesis, where there's a naming, we call them puns, they're not really humorous, but a naming device given with every name that's important to the story. And here in Exodus, we don't get that naming pun tradition, but the giving of names is important, and none more important than the one God gives himself in chapter 15. Moses sings it, he sings that Yahweh is the Yeshua, the Savior, the salvation, the Savior of his people, and that, of course, is the same name that God takes for himself when he becomes man in Jesus Christ. So you're right, the naming is
and especially, I think that's well said, the name of God himself, how, we looked at that a couple episodes ago, just the name, what Yahweh even means, as even, again, lending itself to that covenantal idea. But without any further ado, let's turn to the chapter itself. So we want to go ahead and read the whole chapter straight through, let it kind of just stick together as a whole, as a unity. But before we do, anything that we should be listening out for, keeping our eyes and ears open for, kind of repeating themes, keywords?
I think there are a couple of things. First thing, in terms of the development of the narrative, there are really several scenes here. In the first scene, Moses and Aaron will meet with Pharaoh, verses 1 to 5. The second scene, verses 6 to 9, where Pharaoh issues a new command to the people. The third scene, verses 10 to 14, where the people are now have a new burden laid upon them, a new way of working, a burdensome way of working. The fourth scene, verses 15 to 19, where trouble emerges because they can't fulfill the new conditions of work. The fifth scene, where the supervisors then meet with Moses and Aaron and complain. And at the end, the last scene, verses 22 and 23, where Moses then turns to God and accuses God of bringing harm upon his people and failing to keep the promise that he had made to deliver them. So this chapter builds to this conclusion at the end, and this conclusion in the last couple of verses will set the stage for the response that God gives to Moses in chapter 6. So the chapter is put together in such a way as to build to this conclusion. And there's one other thing that we should note at the top, and that happens right away at the beginning of the chapter. We'll talk more about it, but Pharaoh responds to Moses in verse 2, and I won't quote it now, but what he says to Moses in verse 2 is really the challenge that God takes up throughout the section of the narrative that we call the plague narratives, right? Chapters 6, 7, 8, 9, into 10. So this verse 2 is very important for setting the trajectory of how the narrative is going to go and what God is doing in response to what Pharaoh says in verse 2. So two things, especially to look out in terms of the overall flow of the book. Pharaoh's statement in verse 2, and then the accusation of Moses at the end of the chapter.
Yeah, no, thanks. That's very helpful. We've seen, of course, these, whenever you have these quotes, you don't typically have long speeches or, discourses recorded, but when you do have someone speak, look out, especially those things that get repeated. So we'll want to be taking a look at that. And then, yeah, that's really interesting how you point that out. This is all kind of heading towards, it looks like this mission has ended in failure with the accusation, which in some ways makes it kind of like the opposite of what happened in chapter 4, where Moses has these objections, but God deals with them, and at the end, well, hey, like they receive His word, they all bow down, they worship, right? So things are looking good at chapter 4, and then end of chapter 5. Well, doesn't look like. So yeah, very interesting, a little bit of an ebb and flow here. So let's go ahead and read it then, and then actually, as we do, would you actually do us the honor of opening us up with a prayer?
Certainly. Shall we pray? Heavenly Father, bless your word and those who hear it, that hearing your word, we may come to believe in Jesus Christ who is revealed in it, may cling to him in faith, may be strengthened in our life before you and our witness to the world. Grant this, Lord, for Jesus' sake, in whose name we pray. Amen.
Amen. All right, so here is Exodus chapter 5 in the English Standard Version. Afterward, Moses and Aaron went and said to Pharaoh, "Thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, let my people go, that they may hold a feast to me in the wilderness." But Pharaoh said, "Who is the Lord, that I should obey his voice and let Israel go? I do not know the Lord, and moreover, I will not let Israel go." Then they said, "The God of the Hebrews has met with us. Please let us go a 3 days' journey into the wilderness, that we may sacrifice to the Lord our God, lest he fall upon us with pestilence or with the sword." But the king of Egypt said to them, "Moses and Aaron, why do you take the people away from their work? Get back to your burdens." And Pharaoh said, "Behold, the people of the land are now many, and you make them rest from their burdens." The same day, Pharaoh commanded the taskmasters of the people and their foremen, "You shall no longer give the people straw to make bricks, as in the past. Let them go and gather straw for themselves. But the number of bricks that they made in the past you shall impose on them. You shall by no means reduce it, for they are idle. Therefore they cry, let us go and offer sacrifice to our God. Let heavier work be laid on the men, that they may labor at it and pay no regard to lying words." So the taskmasters and the foremen of the people went out and said to the people, "Thus says Pharaoh, I will not give you straw. Go and get your straw yourselves wherever you can find it, but your work will not be reduced in the least." So the people were scattered throughout all the land of Egypt to gather stubble for straw. The taskmasters were urgent, saying, "Complete your work, your daily task each day, as when there was straw." And the foremen of the people of Israel, whom Pharaoh's taskmasters had set over them, were beaten and were asked, "Why have you not done all your task of making bricks today, and yesterday, as in the past?" Then the foremen of the people of Israel came and cried to Pharaoh, "Why do you treat your servants like this? No straw is given to your servants, yet they say to us, 'Make bricks.' And behold, your servants are beaten, but the fault is in your own people." But he said, "You are idle. You are idle. That is why you say, 'Let us go and sacrifice to the Lord.' Go now and work. No straw will be given to you, but you must still deliver the same number of bricks." The foremen of the people of Israel saw that they were in trouble when they said, "You shall by no means reduce your number of bricks, your daily task each day." They met Moses and Aaron, who were waiting for them as they came out from Pharaoh, and they said to them, "The Lord look on you and judge, because you have made us stink in the sight of Pharaoh and his servants, and have put a sword in their hand to kill us." And Moses turned to the Lord and said, "O Lord, why have you done evil to this people? Why did you ever send me? For since I came to Pharaoh to speak in your name, he has done evil to this people, and you have not delivered your people at all." So it's, I couldn't help, but I mentioned the movie a couple times already. I really enjoyed the DreamWorks adaptation, The Prince of Egypt. It's just, it's just cool to find high quality children's content that narrates Bible stories. It's not perfect. None of those movie adaptations ever are, but this was one of the scenes I recall. I think they did really well, where the point, it seems, of this burden, right, is that the people would turn against Moses and Aaron, and that they would have all thought of wanting to go and worship Yahweh, the Lord. I don't know this, the Lord. That they would have all this notion just taken out of their minds. It's not just that he's being mean, but this is the part of the psychological warfare. This is so you guys want to start talking about going and worshiping these strange gods? Well, this will teach you.
One of the issues that sometimes arises at the very beginning of this chapter, among commentators at least, is the observation that Moses and Aaron go on their own initiative to Pharaoh. In this case, God doesn't command them to go. Now, of course, they have a general command earlier in the book that they're going to be going and telling Pharaoh to let his people go. But there is no specific instruction at the beginning of this chapter, now go to Pharaoh. And some commentators have argued that the failure here, if you want to call it that, in chapter 5, arises from the fact that Moses and Aaron did this. It wasn't God's time that they should go. They did this on their own initiative. I'm not sure I agree with that.
Yeah.
But mean, I think there may be another explanation for what we'll describe for the moment as failure here, rather than simply they did this on their own initiative without a direct word from God. But some commentators at least raise this as the reason for the problem that arises here. And also the wording is interesting in verse 1. They go to Pharaoh and they command Pharaoh directly. Thus says the Lord, let my people go. Imperatives here. And of course, this is generally not the way that one has a successful interview with royalty. One who thinks himself a god. Just let me walk in and give you orders here in your own court. So, humanly speaking, perhaps that might be part of the reason that Pharaoh reacted negatively. Right. But the more important matter is what Pharaoh himself says in verse 2. And maybe we should focus on that for just a moment. Okay. Just read that over again so it'll be in people's minds.
Right. Right. So this is in verse 2. But Pharaoh said, who is the Lord, that I should obey his voice and let Israel go? I do not know the Lord, and moreover, I will not let Israel go.
Yeah, now you have to remember, this is a polytheistic environment. Right. The Egyptians had, no one knows exactly, but you usually read something like either hundreds or 1,000 gods, many of which were imported from other countries. The Egyptians were quite comfortable bringing in other gods. We have examples of deities in the Egyptian pantheon that were originally from Sudan, for example, the area that we call Sudan today, further south. Later on in Egypt's history, they were quite comfortable identifying the Greek gods with their own deity. So in the polytheistic environment of ancient Egypt, it's not really a problem to introduce a new god. They do one of two things, typically. They either say that this new god is simply a different name for a god we already know. For example, later on, actually not later on, historically speaking, before the time of Moses, we have an example of an inscription from the Sinai Peninsula, an Egyptian mining colony there, where the female consort of Baal, whose name is Baalat, Mrs. Baal, as I like to call her, female form of the name of the god Baal, is identified with the Egyptian goddess Hathor. So, one thing that they did was simply take a foreign god and say that foreign god is the same god that we worship by this other name. Baalat equals Hathor. Other times, they would bring a deity in. If they didn't see a connection, they would simply add the deity to their own pantheon. We have examples of that as well. One of my favorites is this Egyptian deity known as Bes, B-E-S, Bes. Bes is originally probably from the area of Sudan to the south of Egypt and represents, in Egyptian mythology, Bes is the deity who's always causing trouble for people. If say, I was trying to print out something really important on my computer and all of a sudden something went haywire with my printer. If I were in ancient Egypt, I would say Bes is the one who does that. He's the trickster, the game player, the deity who's responsible for all the little things that get messed up in life all the time. And he wasn't originally an Egyptian deity at all. He was a deity from Kush, modern Sudan, or Ethiopia, a little further to the east, depending on exactly where you're talking about. But in any case, he was a foreign deity that they just brought into the Egyptian pantheon. So the point here in verse 2, when Pharaoh says, who is Yahweh? Who is the Lord? Right. I should obey his voice to let Israel go. Presumably, we'll take Pharaoh at his word here when he says he doesn't know the name Yahweh. Now, normally that wouldn't be a problem, as I said, but here Pharaoh is resistant. Already back a couple of chapters ago, you remember that God had already told Moses that, Moses would go down, but Pharaoh would not let his people go, and so God would force him to do so with a mighty hand.
Right.
So here we get the fulfillment of that prophecy, if you will, where Pharaoh resists. Maybe Moses and Aaron's attitude had a little something to do with that, humanly speaking, but it doesn't really matter. In any case, he lays down the challenge, Pharaoh does, and says, "Who is Yahweh?" So
right.
His voice. I don't know him, and I'm not going to let Israel go. And it's to answer this question, who is Yahweh, that in the chapters to come, chapters 6, 7, 8, 9, in those chapters that you'll be looking at coming forward, you'll notice time and time again that God says to Moses, he's doing this so that the Egyptians will know who I am.
Right. Yeah, no, it's
so this theme that God is answering Pharaoh's challenge, it runs through the play narrative.
Yeah, I think we've been seeing that the knowing and seeing theme is just so key to all of this. It was really especially back in chapter 3 that we really saw that, where was it there? I think it was. Actually, you know what? It was really. I think, yeah, it was in chapter 2 that we really saw it, because at the very end there, we had those words that their cry for rescue from slavery came up to God, and God heard their groaning, and God remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and Jacob. God saw the people of Israel, and God knew. Which is just such an interesting way that ends the chapter like that. God saw the people of Israel, and God knew, and that, like, all throughout that chapter, we had this. Of course, it really happened, but the way it's told, the princess of Egypt goes down into the water, and she sees this baby. She hears him cry. The whole thing is even set up in the very beginning, right? That the Pharaoh, this new Pharaoh, comes along, and he does not know Joseph, right? So the seeing, hearing, knowing is all over and over and over again. And so I totally agree. The point here is not like, oh, well, if you had just been more polite, there it is, guys. Please and thank you are the magic words. Just leave them out. You may have to make bricks without straw. This is no kind of we'll just kind of like ethical lesson here, but rather the point is that God's not content, in a way of speaking, to just have Pharaoh grant the request, and then everyone just kind of leaves, and everyone's like, "Hey, what happened?" Anyway, we don't see those Hebrews around here anymore. No. God is going to harden Pharaoh's heart so that everyone sees and everyone knows. You got to have the confrontation, though, or else no one's going to see. No one's going to know. 30 seconds here, just your brief thoughts, and we'll get back after the break.
Okay, just on the verse you were talking about, it's interesting that all the other verbs there at the end of chapter 2 have an object specified, but the knowing doesn't.
Yeah.
And God knew.
Yeah.
It's a very abrupt ending, and the only conclusion I think you can draw is that God knew that it was time to act.
Yeah.
God knew that the moment had come to act on what God knew.
Yeah, that's right. Like, kind of leading it, and that's when God knew, right? Dot. But yeah, very good. Everybody, we got to take that break here, but hang on. We're looking at Exodus chapter 5 here on Nice Strong Word. We'll be right back.
LCMS Disaster Response and Training provides guidance and counsel to congregations seeking
Okay.
restoration to their neighbors before, during, and after disasters. From congregation preparedness.
Studio for you guys. All right. So is Facebook behaving itself today? Looks like it still. Very good. All right, yeah. yeah, sorry guys about last time. Only got like 10 minutes of the stream for some reason, but it's behaving itself today. But yeah, and Exodus is fun. I think, what Dr. Adams was just saying about just appreciating the polytheistic context here. It's really interesting, and it just really highlights this knowing idea, because the Egyptians knew all kinds of gods. They seem to know everybody. They borrowed them from far and wide, but they didn't know Yahweh. They didn't know the one true God, and so God was not going to let that go on. And that really takes us back to it was I forget the chapter, but it was in Isaiah where God actually says, "Hey, I call Egypt my son." Right. So this is where God is not just saving Israel, but in a limited way, He's already saving Egypt by actually giving them knowledge, by letting them see and know. Welcome back, everybody, to Thy Strong Word. I'm Pastor A.J. Espinosa. We're looking at Exodus chapter 5, making bricks without straw, this confrontation between Moses and Aaron and Pharaoh. But as we were just talking about, ultimately, this confrontation that God is having in the context of this polytheistic culture of Egypt, that they don't know the one true God, and He is going to let them see Him and know Him as well as the people of Israel. We're joined today by our guest. We've got the Reverend Dr. David Adams, Associate Professor of Exegetical Theology at Concordia Seminary in St. Louis. I want to make sure to invite all of our live listeners. If you're in St. Louis, you can give us a call, 314-821-0850. If you have a question for us, also any questions or comments, you can call 1-800-730-2727, or you can send an email to kfuo@kfuo.org, or if you're following along on the live stream at facebook.com/AJ Espinosa. Also want to make sure to thank our underwriters at the Lutheran Heritage Foundation, their website, lhfmissions.org. Thank you guys for underwriting Thy Strong Word. So just before the break, we were just talking about, the seeing and the knowing. And so I really think that is where it's going here, that, it's really interesting because Pharaoh seems to have, it's kind of a good strategy, right? Like this is he wants the people of Israel to shoot the messenger, right? So he's gonna, they're gonna say like, it's on Moses' own lips at the end there. Oh Lord, why have you done evil to this people? Why did you ever send me? Right? That's exactly what Pharaoh wants them to say. Like, oh man, why did we ever think that we should, have this Yahweh guy in our lives? And why did we ever think that listening to Moses was a good idea? That's falling right into Pharaoh's hands. But the kind of dramatic irony here, right, is that this is all falling into God's plan, because by Pharaoh doing this, and what's that phrase there in 21? You made a stink in the side of Pharaoh and his servants, right? But the thing is, by making all of this just become more, it's in the sight, right? It's in their faces of Pharaoh and his servants. The whole matter, the whole thing is just becoming well known. Well, now this is just falling into Yahweh's plan. Everyone is going to see this, and everyone is going to know.
By the time God is done with them, they will have the answer to the question that that Pharaoh has thrown down here. Who is this Yahweh guy that I should do what he said? Well, hold on, we'll find out. Right? And so that's why this verse is so important for setting up the narrative. As we work through the chapter, we might want to note just a couple of details that help us to understand historically what's going on here as well. For example, in verse 6, Pharaoh commands the taskmasters of the people and their foremen. This actually gives us a little bit of an insight into the way things were structured in Egypt. The taskmasters of the people would be the native Egyptian people who were responsible for the work getting done. And the foreman, as the ESV translates it, would be the Israelites who were selected to kind of manage their own people. So the chain of command here goes from Pharaoh to the supervisors, the Egyptian supervisors of the forced labor. And then those are then transmitted and turned into practical work by the group that the ESV translates as foreman. The native Hebrews or Israelite people who were directly responsible for the working groups
Right.
that were under them. This is a way work was organized. In Egypt, not only was there slave labor, but also the subulah, the corvée, forced labor, was a common feature of Egyptian life for Egyptian citizens as well. It was uncommon for Egyptian men to have to leave their farms and go to work on major government construction projects for several months at a time. So the forced labor, which the Israelites were experiencing, also something that native Egyptians had to also do. They were slaves in the same sense, but the forced labor was a common feature of Egyptian life in this period and for much of Egyptian history. So there's a little insight there.
Yeah.
Kind of slide over these words, but it really does give us information about how things were done.
Well, and that's really helpful because I mean, I think it just kind of helps sharpen the picture here that the narrative, the point of the narrative is like not well, hey, look at how mean Pharaoh was. I mean, he doesn't even give them weekends, right? It's like no, that's a very modern way of looking at it. That's not like he's there's no union. What's going? I mean, that's not. Those are the sorts of things that we're thinking about. But as you're saying, this is just part of the course here. This is how it was. If you weren't a member of the aristocracy, it didn't matter if you were. I mean, it didn't matter, but as you were saying, it could end up being just the same in terms of forced labor, whether you're Egyptian or Hebrew. So it's not that's the narrative's point, but again, the purpose, that it's this turning these, as you were describing, the foremen or actual Hebrews, turning the Hebrew leaders themselves against Moses and Aaron. And that it's all about this, trying to, he's trying to just kind of snuff the thing out, right? Like no one's going to want to deal with Moses and Aaron. They'll stop hearing, they'll stop listening, right? That's the idea that he keeps saying they're idle, right? He keeps repeating that you're idle because you've got time to look and to hear other things, right? That I don't want you to be looking at or listening to, right? So he's trying to redirect their ears and their eyes. That's the key of what he's up to here.
Another historical detail in the text that might be of interest to people is this whole matter of the straw and the mud bricks that they're making. Pastor Espinosa, you will remember that mud brick is the most common construction material in the ancient world. The thing about mud brick is that it's not baked in an oven. It's simply mud and sand, sometimes with straw. You use straw to stabilize the mixture depending on the amount of clay, soil, and the amount of sand that you have mixed together. Depending on the composition, straw is not always added, but it was frequently added to mud brick to help bind it together. And so this is the way they do this is they mix the dirt and the water to make mud and put the straw in and mash it all together and put it in a form like a baking pan, sort of, so it adopts those sort of a loaf shape. These are typically, mud bricks are typically about maybe 6 to 8 inches from front to back, and maybe 4 inches or so thick, and maybe modern brick.
Mm.
And they're not baked in nothing. They just set out, they're put in a form, set out to dry, and then you use them. Typically, the way they construct things is they have stones as the foundation layer. That can be anywhere from a couple of inches to a couple of feet, and then mud brick is used above that. And mud brick was used for everything, not just used for temples. It was used for city gates, city walls. It's the most common construction material in the ancient world, and it's cheap and easy. And of course, the reason that you don't bake it is because if you're going to bake it, you have to collect a lot of wood. That makes it very expensive.
Right.
So, and of course, in Egypt they don't have a lot of wood. It would be even more expensive. So one time in the Bible that the Bible actually mentions mud bricks being baked is in the Tower of Babel episode, where we're told that the Babylonians actually baked the mud bricks in an oven. They also used tar as mortar, which was also important. So Tower of Babel was a very special structure, very expensive to build. But this was just common material that they're doing here. And the point of the straw is that it helps bind it together. So because there's so much sand in the soil in Egypt, it's kind of loose, and so it helps to bind this material together. And so they're going to have to collect the straw in addition to making the bricks. So it's imposing, actually a substantial additional workload on the people. So that's the reason that this is kind of, Pharaoh sets this task that he knows is sort of impossible for them to do.
Right.
For one thing, as we're told in verse 12, the people have to scatter throughout the land to gather the straw.
Right.
To make the bricks. So you have fewer workers. If a large part of them have to go out and collect the straw, that means there are fewer of them to actually make the bricks. And so it's a process that is obviously going to fail. And of course, that's what the Pharaoh wants.
Well, and also, I was just thinking, just the idea of scattering. I mean, you see that just so often. You mentioned the Tower of Babel, right? And you also think about the prophets. That idea of the people being scattered. I mean, this is always a bad thing, and it's always in juxtaposition to being in one place and gathering to worship, right? I mean, it's like the opposite in a lot of ways. And it actually kind of intuitively makes sense, because if Pharaoh's like, hey, they're just kind of hanging out and they're not getting that much work done, and they're all just chit-chatting about, some foreign god that I don't know about. Well, here, I'm just going to send them all over the place. They'll be running around. They'll be running past each other. They'll be running out to the furthest reaches here, and they won't have time to just be sitting around the watering hole together talking about this newfangled religion stuff. I mean, like, it seems like it's another way that he's trying to stop them from getting together and thinking together collectively. I mean, isn't that like also part of what he says, really? I mean, we get back to this, and it was back in verse 5. It kind of just, you almost forget about it, but it kind of like sneaks into it here. That in verse 5 he says, the people are many. So we get that comment again. And so rather than back, a couple of chapters ago, where the plan was, well, we're going to just forcibly reduce the population, here, well, at least we'll just reduce the population density, and we'll scatter them, we'll spread them out. So the manyness of them and them coming together, those seem to be really big points in what Pharaoh is trying to deal with here.
Now, this is really a simple political, military matter, not really a theological matter from Pharaoh's perspective. You'll recall that in the couple of centuries just before the time of Moses, Egypt had been divided. I mean, the northern part of Egypt was ruled by people who were Semites, who were Canaanites, basically, and they had come down to Egypt and had taken over in the Delta. They were called the
Right.
So Pharaoh is, acting out of what we might think of simple political expediency in trying to divide the people and keep them apart. And as you said, he's quite successful.
Right. It seems that it's all working out according to what he had in mind, and really to get back to what you were saying about the bricks too. I mean, it's just there is something of a juxtaposition then that Pharaoh, he's just all operating on a very worldly perspective. Like, oh, this is a lot of people in one place that apparently are getting together and talking a lot about foreign stuff. This is no good for me politically, right? He's just dealing with political situations in political terms. I mean, this is like the way that Herod or that Rome, right, was dealing with the Lord Jesus and the early Christians, right? I mean, it's just a worldly power thing to them. But there's another perspective here, and it's not just about worldly power. I mean, and so this is where we can go wrong here, because as you were saying, this stuff about making the bricks. Of course, when he throws in the not giving them straw part, that there's a little bit of a change. But the point was not, oh well, here they are in Egypt and they're forced to make bricks. That's so terrible. I mean, maybe it was, and certainly it was. I'm sure. The oppression of the poor at the hands of the aristocracy is pretty much always not pretty, but especially not in the ancient world. But the point is not that this was really exceptionally bad, though. And so God was like, oh wow, well this is just inhumane treatment, and so I've got to liberate these people who are being unfairly treated. It's a spiritual perspective here that he's wanting to make people see and know the true God and gather a people together for himself. So I mean, there's two. I mean, along with these things that we're seeing, there's just two different perspectives going on here.
Right. What God is doing is not immediately obvious to human eyes, because we see things in the short term. God is thinking in the long term, if you will, about fulfilling the promises that he made to Abraham and Abraham's descendants, of people who would come from Abraham, who would ultimately also lead to the birth of the one who would redeem all mankind from bondage. And so the redemptive work that God is doing here is not only just to get Israel out of Egypt, but also to prophesy in action what God is going to do in terms of redeeming the whole world. So there's more than one thing going on here. There's always the human perspective, and sometimes I think Christians, we sometimes lose sight of the human perspective. We forget the political, economic realities of the history, because we think of it only in spiritual terms. So sometimes it's useful to be reminded of the historical reality, but we always have to keep in mind that the historical reality is part of the foreshadowing that God is doing, showing what he's going to do ultimately in Christ to redeem all mankind.
And certainly we've seen how there's already been a good little bit of foreshadowing pointing ahead to the Lord Jesus. I mean, when we were seeing how you have Moses returning from Midian to go back to Egypt, and so he's taking his family back, right? And it's so interesting because the story seems to indicate that Zipporah had just around the same time given birth to their son Gershom, right? So you've got here's the father packing up his wife right around the time of her giving birth, and their child on the donkey to go back to Egypt, right? Because what did it say, right? The men who sought to kill you are dead, right? And that feels just like the Holy Family returning from Egypt, right? So I mean, it's really fascinating how you have all these different things as you were just kind of lining up for us. That it's like you were saying, prophesying through action. We got some questions that came in over email that I want to take a look at here. You're kind of talking about the spiritual perspective a little bit that we get from in our modern times, one of the things I think that jumps off the page for us in our perspective, spiritually in particular, is that word evil there at the end in verse 22, right? That I think, yeah, yeah. Yeah, because I think because I think we talked about it a little bit here, because we see it in the Psalms all the time, but it's always good to bring it up again. But yeah, I mean, I think it seems very harsh to us, and we're like, what? How could he even, suggest that God would do evil? And so I think the questions that came in over email were sort of like, is this a correct assessment on Moses' part that God has done evil here? Is this evil a direct result of God's will, or does it just kind of passively develop? So we try to go very theological on this word evil, but maybe we shouldn't be so quick to go there.
Well, and this is the case of translation sometimes giving us problems.
Right.
The word in Hebrew can mean to do evil, but it can also have, if you will, a sense that's a little less morally oriented. It could just mean to harm someone.
Right.
And I think that the ESV is perhaps over-translated here, and they're following the tradition of the King James.
Right.
Translates it this way also. But I think in this case, it's not moral evil that Moses is talking about. He's simply saying you have brought harm upon the people.
Mm-hmm.
So I think evil is probably not the best choice of words in English here. We could talk at some length about the challenges of translating and picking words in English that correspond to the sense of the original.
Right.
But when Moses turns to God, he's not accusing God of being immoral.
Right.
He's simply saying, this hasn't turned out the way that you said. You kind of led me to believe that it was going to turn out.
Right.
So, Lord, why have you done, the ESV translates, why have you done evil to this people? I would probably translate that, oh Lord, why have you harmed
Right.
these people?
Right.
Because ever since I came to speak in your name, he, as Pharaoh, has done harm to these people, and you have not delivered your people at all.
Yeah.
The word evil has a moral overtone, spiritual overtone, that is probably not right in this case.
Right. Well, and that's I thank you for breaking it down for us helpfully like that. It's difficult, and I'm glad you mentioned too also that they're just following the King James version, because I think it's one of the many examples of where it's really dangerous to follow the King James version, not because the King James was wrong. And see, this is the hard thing, because if you look in the history of the English language, the word evil actually used to have a sense that was a lot more, it was a bigger part of the word, and it was a lot closer actually to the Hebrew word of ra, that you could hear people talking about an evil odor, right, which did not mean the sense of a demon, but just something that smelled bad, or it was an evil day, referring to it being hot and muggy. Right, or people talking about an evil plant or an evil crop to say it was worthless or no good. Right, so all of those are evil and not in a moral sense. Right, and so we've had since the time that the King James version was translated this narrowing of the meaning, so it doesn't just mean kind of bad anymore, or harmful or no good. It just specifically means nowadays, moral evil. And so it's the difficulty of translation, right? If you can stick with the traditional translation, but the problem is the ground's moving from underneath you. The words themselves are changing their meaning, and so it's like even though the ESV is sticking with an old translation, the word changed, and so now it doesn't even mean the same thing anymore.
That's exactly right. It's one of the challenges of translating the Bible, not just understanding syntax, but also understanding the connotation that words have in the
Right. Well, and then conversely, kind of understanding a little bit when you're looking at former translations and you're trying to be sensitive to that, understanding, 17th century English, and that's turns out a lot harder than it seems to be when you're looking at it. But only maybe 2 minutes here. But yeah, just taking a look here now at the chapter as we've gone through it as a whole. I mean, we kind of talked about the trajectory and some of the key themes, but just any other things that pop out at you, or any thoughts by way of conclusion here.
Well, we might just take a look at the end of the chapter just to set up what's going to happen next. Because, in verse 20, Moses and Aaron meet with the supervisors who had been talking to Pharaoh, and they, accuse Moses of their aroma stink in the
Right.
sight of Pharaoh. It's a mixed metaphor, right?
Yeah.
You don't stink in the eyes. No.
Yeah.
But we'll forgive the Holy Spirit for mixing and because the point here is the last phrase, you put a sword in their hand to kill us. And so in the next chapter, Moses is going to go to God and, in effect, lay this on the table and say to God, what are you going to do about this? You promised to deliver, and you haven't. And so this sets the scene for the conversation that will take place between God and Moses in chapter 6. And we'll leave that for your next session and your next guest to fill out.
Yeah.
It's important to see that this episode in chapter 5 it's not just a random detail in terms of Israel's history.
Mm-hmm.
It's there to, in a sense, set the stage for what God is going to say to Moses in chapter 5.
And as you said too, setting a pattern that we see even with the coming of Christ. Why did he let things get so bad? Well, so that the Lord would be seen and that all would know through Jesus Christ and his redemption. So thank you so much. It was awesome having you on, just the depth that you brought. We got to have you on again. Thank you so much.
I'm at your service.
That's right. Very good. Thank you, everybody. That was Reverend Dr. David Adams, Associate Professor of Exegetical Theology at Concordia Seminary in St. Louis. Moving on to Chapter 6. Till then, I'm Pastor A.J. Espinosa. Peace.
You can make a gift safe, secure, and easily online at KFUO.org. Thank you for listening and supporting.